This way, move this way, move this way, move this way.
Good evening, Auburn fans. I'm Miles Baranow, and I'm here with Brandon and Michael with Auburn Undercover Sports at auburnundercover.com. We're here to discuss John Franklin leaving the team today. Brandon, you wrote an exclusive story that on the site today about that. How do you feel?
Well, it was kind of surprising considering we spoke to John Franklin III 10 days ago, and everyone was specifically asking, did you ever think about transferring after the spring or transferring when you graduate from here? And he said, no, it wasn't really an option for him because he didn't want to go to a fourth school in 5 years. He said that Auburn was the place for him. He loves it here. And then 10 days later, he changed his mind, has already found a school, and he's off the team. And Gus Malzahn sending out a press release and statement saying goodbye. That was kind of strange, but I talked to John, and you could tell this has been boiling under the surface for JF3 for a while. He's very unhappy about his predicament here. He said he thought for over the last year he was the ultimate teammate. He switched from quarterback to receiver when they needed to. He played all these different positions. He was open-minded about moving even to defense if they needed to. But he realized, I just got my degree. I'm not going to play a lot this season. I think it was very apparent after those first 9 or 10 practices to him that he was not going to play at receiver very much this season. And he just kind of felt, I got to do me. I got to go take care of myself. And as he kept saying, I want to be happy. He said he's just unhappy here and a lot of that has to do with his life as a football player. But he also said he's been dealing with some personal stuff here at Auburn. He wouldn't go into detail, but and he even said, I'd rather not get into that, but he's gone through some personal stuff. Every kid his age, you're in college, you go through stuff. Absolutely. And he just thought, listen, I'm a senior. I did what I wanted to do. I got my degree. I can go be a man now, go do my own thing. And he's going to go to a school like FAU where he's going to get to play probably a little bit more. And even if he doesn't, this was like the telling quote to me, was he says, even if I don't get to, this is me paraphrasing, even if I don't get to play at FAU and this is the end of my college football career, at least I get to spend the next year doing what I want to do. I thought that was telling, and I just don't think he was happy here personally. I think he liked the people around here. He loved the coaches. He just didn't like the situation he was in. He didn't feel like he was being utilized how he thought he should be utilized. Now, you could argue, and I would argue, sure, that he probably was about where he should have been. He shouldn't be a starter. He shouldn't be the quarterback. He's had turnover issues, but he can go to a smaller school and contribute. And if you look at FAU and their situation, Michael, if you want to chime in, this is a nice. Their situation at receiver is kind of shaky right now, so he can go in and contribute immediately.
I just think it says that there might not be a winner in the wide receiver competition, but there definitely was a person lower down. And bottom line is he wasn't going to play. I think that we've kind of talked about his struggles during practice at wide receiver. Doesn't have the surest hands right now, but and it's not his fault. This is his sort of last-ditch effort to kind of find the field and kind of being thrown in. Jonathan Wallace did this late in his career. It's almost impossible when you're a senior to kind of change positions and be a productive player. He had the speed. They always loved his athleticism, but there was just no way to effectively get him the ball without maybe worrying about fumbling the ball, catching. There's only so much you could do and only so many plays. You got running backs. You got 4 running backs you want to get the ball to. You got a bunch of receivers you want to get the ball to. You got Chandler Cox. And then you got this stronger passing game. Yeah. There just wasn't the ball. There wasn't enough to go around. And John Franklin, saw the writing on the wall, and probably the coaches were honest about him at some point when you said, you talked about how that last scrimmage was separation Saturday, and when you have that, the coaches probably sat him down and been like, look, there's not much here for you,
I think that's what happened.
And he graduated, so they gave him a little time to kind of find a landing spot.
I think that's what happened with him. Tim Horton was pretty clear even before that scrimmage at the assistant coach gathering we had here that, he had been saying, I thought I had a real shot at being a kick returner, and then Tim Horton says he's not going to be a guy returning the ball this year. He just straight up said it. And that kind of I was like, man, so how's this guy going to contribute? At the very least, you could put on special teams at kick returner and utilize that speed, but even that he didn't really have a spot.
He didn't want to be spending the year being a gunner. That's not. That's the kind of hard part for him. Yeah. He wasn't gonna, being somebody that didn't have a chance to touch the ball. That was what he wanted, and he just wanted to be a playmaker. And there was just that wasn't going to happen here.
But what's interesting, though, is that you would think the coaching staff would have tried to figure out ways to do that, and they probably did in these scrimmages, but even that wasn't working out. And because you never heard of John Franklin III busting a big speed sweep or anything like that. I guess they're just not utilizing. They weren't utilizing him in that. And the writing was on the wall. Like after that second scrimmage, it was very clear to him and a lot of people, as we kept hearing. I mean, listen, he had to play at receiver, and he was struggling a little bit bobbling the ball. And I'm sure he'll have regrets. You know, the thing that I would say is, you know, for him, you wonder, you know, Jimbo Fisher, when he was at Florida State back in 2014, before he transferred, wanted to move him to receiver and did. And John didn't want that. And he went to East Mississippi Community College to go play quarterback so he could maybe go to the SEC or some other big conference and play quarterback like he wanted to here at Auburn. Maybe he should have listened to Jimbo Fisher, because who knows what kind of position he may have been in now after learning the position for 2 years and maybe getting to play as a senior and be noticed more in the NFL.
Or you try to go to a Jacksonville State and be a quarterback or something. You know, he saw kind of when Auburn came, he probably, you know, had that sort of eyes go wide and say, man, I have an opportunity there. But at the same time, you know, he was facing an uphill battle. The talent level is going to be much bigger. And I just think a smaller school, he might have been to be able to kind of be the show like he wanted. Yeah. And it was just going to be tough here to break through in the SEC.
You know, and sometimes we forget. I mean, listen, they become men. I mean, once you graduate and you're as old as he is, you're a man or whatever. But everybody's a human being. And talking to him today, I couldn't help but feel kind of like sad for him, because he was very down. He did not want this to happen. This is not how he wanted his career at Auburn to end.
And after just one last, you know, after what he said a week ago, when the headlines were all, you know, Auburn is his last chance, and this was not an easy decision in any way, but he's got egg on his face now, and he looks, and he's probably getting killed on social media for this, and he's a big social media guy, and I know that sounds silly, but, you know, that adds to it, and I think that he knows the perception is that, you know, for school in 5 years, it's not, that's not the route you want to take.
He said it last week. He knew the perception of it, and he said he doesn't care about others' opinions, but listen, it weighs on you, and when you're on a Netflix documentary, and he's got thousands of followers, as he said, he gets like 100 direct messages every day on Instagram. You know he's hearing it from both sides, positive and negative. Right? No, positive and negative. And listen, good luck to John Franklin III, I say. I hope he has a good season and he gets a chance to see if he can do something in the NFL, go to the Combine or Pro Day, maybe go somewhere. Because, I mean, listen, he may be going to 4 schools in 5 years. The dude graduated, though. He was able to transfer credits, which is a difficult thing to do, and still find the time to graduate. His parents are all educators. He's been pounded in the head about education. This isn't a bad kid. This isn't some guy looking, you know, just I'm going to go do this. I don't care about college. Guy got his degree. He went to the Dominican Republic this summer to go volunteer. I mean, he's a good guy. But he is selfish in a way. He even said, I got to be selfish for myself now. I've got to look out for me. I've got to go see if this is my last chance to do this and work it out.
Absolutely, and I think hopefully he'll have a more positive outlook now that he's closer with his family.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
at a smaller school. Also, Ian Shannon was announced starting punter today. How do you feel about that? Were you surprised by that decision?
No, I thought it was coming after Saturday's scrimmage. I'd heard he was the most consistent punter, biggest leg, but there's still some inconsistency there. I heard from Saturday and last week in practice, but last week was his strongest consecutive days of practices. But I mean, Gus Malzahn, I mean, you spoke to him more. I spoke with him tonight. I didn't speak to him. I'm sure Gus Malzahn's going to be in his grill quite a bit still in practices to make sure that pressure is still on him and that he can contribute and perform under that pressure. And you really won't know till he's out there on the field, but all you can judge him on is, 1, practices, but 2, he wasn't overtly successful last season when he had chances, and he's got to get better because Barrett Sallee with CBS Sports, our parent company, mentioned, I think someone was mentioning to him today on Twitter, asking, when's the last time Auburn worried about a punter or kicker? Because it seems like they've always had great special teams since the Tommy Tuberville days in the late 90s. They've never really struggled there, and now it's iffy.
I mean, Kevin Phillips was up and down a little bit.
But he was more consistent. It wasn't terrible.
Wasn't a standout sort of.
There's a concern here that it could be bad. Yeah. And that hasn't been a thing in the past.
Well, it's really disappointing that Jared Stidham gets the big tweet yesterday, and Ian doesn't get a tweet today. I mean, that seems. I mean, punters are people too, right? That's the phrase. So disappointed in that. Obviously, I think everybody is. But Ian was talking about the competition and said, Gus was sort of in his grill, like you said, and it was kind of not subtle, but not like doing something so overt, but just standing near him while he punted and kind of putting that.
Well, here's what he would do.
He's chatting over him.
Miles is the punter. This is what he would do while he was lining up the punt. He'd just be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that wasn't good."
And I guess
you just slowly walk up.
No
It's really
pressure.
weird. Yeah, no pressure. I'm right in your ear.
And so now that everybody's freaked out, so now, and what Gus's presence meant also was that everything that he did was timed. So when Gus would come over, the punts would be timed, the airtime would be timed, like there'd be extra kind of things. And then they got more of a workload this spring and preseason camp. They were punting a lot more situational stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a legitimate competition. It sounds weird, punting doesn't get a lot of. It's not exactly exciting, but they were doing a lot of work on it because they were really concerned. And Tyler Stovall joined the competition, which is kind of a surprise, but he won it, fair and square, I guess, after a legit sort of four-way battle. And sounds excited, but I think there's going to be a short leash. I mean, Daniel Carlson's going to be a viable emergency option. And even though it's not preferable, he's somebody that will step in at a moment's notice. Especially if it's a game where they're not kicking field goals, he's going to be kicking off. But I mean, still, he can punt, time or two. So Ian Shannon's not out of the woods, but he's going to be certainly the starter at the start of the year.
And here's the other thing about Ian Shannon. He came in, he was a highly rated kicker by 24/7 Sports and other recruiting services. He's a guy that's on scholarship, and the guy he was going against, Aiden Marshall, is a walk-on and really only came to school because he's an Auburn legacy. He's from Virginia. It isn't like some kid from Virginia is going, I'm going to go walk on at Auburn. The only reason why he's here is because he's a legacy and his parents went here. So Ian Shannon was expected to be the punter last season. He's a scholarship guy, and then they had to go get a junior college player instead. So if you're a scholarship guy and you're highly rated by 24/7 Sports and others, you've got to perform, you've got to win starting jobs, and he finally did it. Now he's got to hold on to it because, as Gus Malzahn said a week or two ago, the last thing he wants to do is be doing this week by week. Because if you're doing it week by week, you're just not going to be very good on special teams. That'll start affecting Daniel Carlson and what he does on kickoffs and obviously field goals if he has to get involved.
It'll be interesting. You got these first couple of weeks. If the offense is successful against some of these weaker opponents, what that does, because you kind of go a week without having to punt very much. Against Georgia Southern, then you go to Clemson where there's high pressure. Then you have kind of a week off where, Mercer, probably not going to be punting very much. No offense to your Mercer fans. And then you go to at Missouri, at Clemson, Missouri, and you're not punting very much in those off weeks, because consistency is an issue. And, are they going to kind of do some different things in practice? That'll be kind of an interesting question because he's going to be in some high pressure situations. Clemson's not going to allow, they're going to have to punt the ball at Clemson. And so if he has one of those bad punts, and then does that lead to something worse, kind of get in your head a little bit. So
it takes one bad play to turn everything.
I mean, weird. They get a little shaky.
Yeah, they're like baseball pitchers.
Yeah,
I mean, they really are. So, I mean, Ian Shannon's a starting punter for now, but that thing's not over with, I don't think. I really don't.
And then we also heard from defensive coordinator Kevin Steele at the press conference tonight. What did you guys think about what he had to say?
He didn't have a lot of specifics. He's in mid-season form, I guess, playing coy about injuries.
He's like, if Gus Malzahn didn't say it,
didn't sound overly concerned about Marlon Davidson and Andrew Williams, which was probably the biggest sort of news out of it. Didn't say their names, but said if a player doesn't practice for more than a week, he's not comfortable sort of playing them, and so that sort of hints. And he's comfortable saying that they'll be in the lineup for the season opener. Did hint that there's been some issues at defensive back with injuries. Wouldn't say who. Some people having to sit out, not necessarily serious, but costing some players practice time. I thought that maybe the injury stuff was kind of the most noteworthy just because we haven't heard a lot about the defensive backs sitting out. And it sounds like they've been kind of having to piece some things together during practice.
Yeah, and he almost said that was almost like a positive because they're utilizing that time to bring the younger players along in the defensive backfield, especially at safety and well, obviously corner, both, but obviously at safety where they're needing to work. Trey Matthews sat out the scrimmage, but not because of injury, but because of a death in the family. He wasn't able to attend practice, and so they inserted some younger guys. I'm not sure if Jeremiah Denson actually participate in the scrimmage either. And he's a guy that plays like every position back there, nickel, corner, safety. The big thing, though, tonight, outside of defensive tackle Andrew Williams and defensive end Marlon Davidson, who might be the best player on the defensive line, who are both have injured knees and might be coming back before the season opener, at least Kevin Steele feels that way, but he kind of hinted that it's going to be more than a week before they really get back in the full recovery mode where they can practice. But Jamel Dean, a guy who has really been waiting to play. If you remember, this is a guy that went to Ohio State, had torn up his knee a couple times, went there. They declared him medically ineligible because of his knee, said the knee wasn't strong enough. After it had healed, he starts exploring other schools. Auburn's doctors look at it. Of course, they've got the best doctor on call when it comes to knee surgeries, and Dr. James Andrews. And he said, no, he's fine. He's good. His knee's fine. So they bring him in, and then what happens last August? The other knee gets hurt, and has to sit out the entire season again. So, but now he's fully healthy, and what he provides is he's a taller, longer, long-armed guy that can really handle the physical receivers in the SEC, and also, as Kevin Steele said, can disrupt the timing with the receivers. All you need is like one good bump on a receiver, and that messes everything up, and the quarterback all of a sudden is having to look to their other receivers. Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis are both kind of in that mold. Auburn hasn't had big corners in a while, and if Jamel Dean ends up winning that starting spot, which it's starting to sound more and more like is a possibility, and if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to have a big year on the opposite side of Carlton Davis.
That's not a small if. With a guy that's been injured 3 times already, and you hope it's not a Joshua Holsey where it just kind of keeps happening. And then
but Josh Holsey bounced back.
But he had 3 he's only had 1 MCL and 2 ACL, so there's a third. Could have a third. But I think it's a constant worry once they get through a full season healthy. I think you can kind of put it behind you. Right now, you're kind of waiting on that. I mean, we got about 2 weeks in last year, and this happened.
Yeah.
So we're kind of at that spot, and midway through the season, after he's had all that work, and he's worked that knee more than he has, is he going to be kind of feeling it? I think it's going to be a wait and see with him just because of those injuries. And Joshua Holsey's talked about how hard it is to kind of bounce back and be consistent, and it took him a while to kind of feel back to himself.
Yeah, I think we talked to Jeremiah Denson tonight. He's playing all over the place. I'm really interested to see where they kind of do they try to keep him at one position, or they just try to switch him off between two, like nickel and safety. He's also playing at corner. I think they've got to settle with 2 corners and find a third guy who can switch between both positions. And Denson might end up being that guy. And then, of course, you got Javarius Davis, who I asked about tonight, but I think Kevin Steele may have thought I was talking about Denson for some reason, because he went into an answer, started talking about Denson. So I wonder what's going on with Javarius Davis, because he was talking about there might be some injuries. So I don't know. But Davis, of course, was a starter last season as a true freshman at corner. But Dean looked like a guy who was in line to start, and then he got injured, and they had to bring Javarius Davis in. And so those guys are kind of fighting it out. I just get the feeling that Dean's going to end up winning it. That's my feeling.
Yeah, it sounded like we've got a couple injuries still up in the air. With Marlon Davidson injured, who's been taking advantage of his playtime during practice?
It sounds like Paul James III a little bit. Marlon is playing the defensive end spot. There's different. You got defensive end. You got the buck spot where it's more of a hot linebacker defensive end hybrid. I think Paul James III needs to take advantage of it. Just the opposite of what happened last season when Paul James III, the JUCO transfer, got injured. He was like the number 1 defensive end, weak side defensive end, the 24/7 sports rankings. Came in, injured his knee, was out for the year. Marlon Davidson had to be elevated all the way up to first team and starter. He comes in and plays very well, ends up being a star. Now he's injured, and Paul James III can step in. Another guy we haven't heard a lot about, but then like behind closed doors you hear good things about is Nick Coe.
Yeah, well, I think they're using him at tackle, but he could play outside. But they like him at tackle, I think, and all his teammates really have said just how great he's kind of played since he's basically landed here. He's put on a lot of weight. He's physically now ready to be a contributor, but everybody has kind of given him great reviews. So he's got a guy that can move around. And Kevin Steele was reluctant a couple weeks ago to kind of talk about where exactly he'll get the majority of his snaps, just because they kind of want to surprise, I think, their upcoming opponents about where he'll kind of figure into the equation.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how they change up their lineups between the Georgia Southern and Clemson games.
Are you saying they might hide some things?
Yes, very much so, offensively and defensively. And I think they've got a lot of, how do you say this? Not speedsters. I hate that word, speedster. Fast twitch guys. Do you like that? Where they can rush the passer from multiple positions. Not your typical defensive end or buck. They can do some different things to put pressure on offensive lines and the quarterbacks and the lonely fullbacks that are trying to block linemen or linebackers that are blitzing at them. So other than that, Kevin Steele didn't really say much tonight.
Wasn't much, no news. And, he does that. He's kind of doesn't like to give a lot of information in a different way than Gus. He'll flat out say, like, I'm not answering that. I'm not talking about that. Yeah. Not saying I don't remember or this or that. He just says, we're not going there. So
I respect that.
And he did that a couple times tonight. And, it's fine. I mean, it is what it is. You can't kind of argue with that. I mean, that's his preference. And, we'll see it once the games roll around where they're playing people. But until then, he's going to kind of keep some things close to his vest.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you definitely want to keep some things a surprise for
Especially
the competition.
When you got Clemson coming up second week. You gotta hide things.
Well, let's see if we can take some questions from our live audience. See what people are asking. If we beat Clemson, will we be undefeated when we play Bama? Those are big assumptions.
No. That would be I think that's a very hard thing to do. Listen, they got to go to LSU. Heck, they've got to go to Missouri, which I think is a trap game early in the season, which comes after the Clemson game, and they might be beat up by then or maybe even overlooking Mizzou. Mizzou starts the season with 4 straight home games. The 4th game is Auburn. They have a chance there if they go 3-0, including a win against Purdue. Mizzou does.
So you're predicting it right now?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that if they were to, they're going to be motivated for that. And if Mizzou can knock off Auburn, all of a sudden Mizzou is a top 25 team. That's going to be a big, huge game for them. And the players were saying that at SEC Media Days, too. They're saying that's a game that's kind of circled on their calendar. That's our first opportunity in the entire season to make noise and possibly show everybody we're a contender in the SEC. So,
well, Clemson's not going to be easy. I mean, Auburn, that's going to be a tough spot that they're in. And, whatever happens week 1, it's not going to be kind of any sort of lay the groundwork for anything against Clemson. That's going to be on the road. It's going to be Jarrett Stidham's first real test, and you got kind of guys that haven't been doing much in preseason camp. So I think it's going to be that game. I don't know how to predict. I mean, we've kind of talked about it being close and Auburn kind of maybe having the advantage talent-wise, but still, I mean, it's a lot to ask. And they've got a lot of difficult road games just with the way the schedule works out. 3 road games in 4 weeks. They have never had that here in the last more than a decade. They haven't had it unless it's like a bowl game where you get a month off between, or the SEC championship, which doesn't really count. I mean, how are those players, especially the young guys, going to handle that? It's not an easy schedule, even though you kind of end on a good note with Georgia and Alabama at home. There's a lot of work to be done to get to that point.
And then there's injuries you got to deal with. Injuries are going to pop up. Yeah. And the bad thing about the schedule this season is that LSU is right in the middle of the season, and it starts a 3-game road streak. Yeah. And if you lose the LSU game or even win it, you're probably going to be pretty beat up going into that game, or at least coming out of it, because that's always going to be a big physical game. And then you have to go on the road twice more right after that. Arkansas. Got a great defense. Yeah, good job on that. He thinks Arkansas has a great defense.
I was thinking Alabama, and I said Arkansas. I was very late at night.
Arkansas was beaten by 53 points last season by Auburn. So, and then they have to go to Texas A&M after a bye week, but it's still on the road. So, and 1 week off isn't going to cure all injuries. But of course, that's all hypothetical, which everything is at this point. But that schedule's tough, but that 3-game road stretch, that's going to define the season for them. Not the Clemson game, not even the Missouri game, though if they lose that and lose bad, then oh man. But if they go down that stretch and then lose 2 of 3, Gus Malzahn's going to be in some trouble probably by the end of the year, because then he's going to be an underdog to probably both Georgia and, of course, Alabama. I don't think no matter what happens, Alabama will probably be favored.
I've been seeing some questions about Cowart. Do we think we're going to see him at all this season, or is he done?
That's one thing Kevin Steele did not mention tonight was Byron Cowart.
Well, he's not been. He's sort of been the man missing in action in general.
But he was given plenty of opportunities to mention his name tonight as we were talking about the defensive line, and he didn't say his name at all.
Well, I think there's a specific reason. I mean, when Rodney Garner, his position coach, wants nothing to say about him, they're downplaying expectations, certainly, by not mentioning him as a guy that they think could contribute. So he's the first
defensive lineman to win the Heisman, is what you're saying.
No. I'd be surprised if he's the first defensive lineman off the bench. I'd be surprised if he's in that second group.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
First even tackle. I mean, I don't think he's going to be in that second. I don't think he's going to be in that second group.
Miles is like, what's going on? What was it? He was like the fifth defensive lineman I was hearing going into preseason camp. It doesn't sound like he's jumped up much at all. In my my power rankings, I can't remember where I put him, but he was very low on that. When Tyrone Truesdell and his name is mentioned more, and by the way, he could barely walk through a drill on that first week, he was mentioned more tonight than because Byron Cowart's name did not exist in that realm, in that room. I wonder if, like you said, Byron Cowart's name, if they would like whisk you out of the room.
It's possible.
Is it possible? But I don't. Man, for the guy that was the #1 recruit in the nation by 24/7 Sports and others, 24/7 Sports, it certainly seems like. I'm not going to say it.
I think the writing's on the wall.
Yes.
In the sense that, look, they're not saying that he's going to this position change is going to resurrect his career. And I think if it was something that was going well, or it was something that he was taking kind of steps forward, they would mention it. They would talk about it because this guy, they need to succeed because they don't want to have missed on their top. What is it? The top recruit that they've ever had, I think, ranking wise.
If you this nice segue. If you go to the 24/7 Sports rankings and you look at every commitment Auburn's had since the modern age of internet recruiting, he is the top signee in Auburn history.
They have every reason to kind of have him succeed because you don't want to whiff on something. I mean, I know they'll kind of probably lay blame on the previous sort of defensive administration, but it's still these guys have had chance to coach him. He wasn't a guy that left after a year. They've had to dip multiple spots.
Do you think they could turn me into a good defensive lineman?
I mean, if you lost some pounds, maybe.
Wow. I thought I'd have to gain weight.
No, I think
probably not.
Maybe hit the weights.
I think you're good.
I could hit the weights, but I don't think they'd want me to eat more.
Eat pizza and look at them.
Eat pizza and look at the weights?
Yeah, that's what you'd be good at, I'm saying.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Put like the pizza on the bars and lift it?
Or to get the pizza.
Do you lift, bro? Yeah, I lift pepperoni and mozzarella. That was the dumbest joke ever. What other questions we got? Any other questions?
Everyone's just making fun of my pronunciation of Cowart right now.
Oh,
Cowart. I'm sorry, everyone.
Well,
I'm new.
Him, so she hasn't been.
Make fun of him for not being able to pronounce Jordan Hare.
Jordan.
Yeah, I do say Jordan, so I got that one going for me.
He keeps saying Jordan. It's not Jordan.
Jordan.
It's Jordan Hare.
Go back to
Brian
Jordan.
Cowart.
Freaking Yankee.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This must be an inside joke between the two of you.
Uh-oh.
Does Jared Stidham have a nickname yet?
No.
Everyone wants to know.
I like the Waco Kid. Was my favorite from
The Waco Kid.
You didn't like Jay Stiddy?
And next time we ask him after the Alabama game, we'll have to.
When he wins the Heisman.
When he wins the Heisman, we'll have to ask him what he likes. But the Waco Kid was the best. I mean, if you guys have nicknames, send them in. We'll. Take
What about QB McDreamy?
No.
I like it.
No.
Dude,
No.
Yeah, but you don't have. I don't think that's his nickname. It has to be.
Can't be official nickname.
Let's ask the crowd.
Let's ask our Facebook viewers. What do you guys think that Jared Stidham's new nickname should be?
Any of you say Jay Heisman or Jarrett Football or something machine, you're automatically disqualified because we've been through this already and we didn't like them.
We got Stid Piece. Apparently, Gus says
this is important. Somebody said you can't pronounce
Jarrett Starter.
Which I totally agree with.
It's
Jeff.
It's Gif.
No, it's Jeff.
It is Jeff.
Butter.
I told
It's
you.
official.
That's the peanut butter.
My little sister, she swears and she knows these things.
I told you.
Jeff.
If the young people know, then it's legit. They are our future.
We're getting a lot of Stiddy
I don't like those.
comments.
See, everybody's like leaning on the easy thing of Stiddy.
It's catchy.
I just like Dreamboat.
Isn't that your nickname?
That's what they call me. But actually, not Dreamboat. That's in my dreams. I'm actually called Tugboat.
We'll let that one pass.
Just like a small tugboat, slowly chugging along. Oh my God.
Anyway, any other football questions?
Any other questions? Any
questions?
Good nicknames?
Or good nicknames. Everyone's saying we should see how he performs before we give him a nickname.
Hey, I agree with that. I think you have to earn a nickname. And listen, the guy that you'd be able to ask, and he would tell you what the nicknames of the players were, was John Franklin III, and he's gone. He called Jamel Dean Jimmy Dean, like the sausage. And now, was it John Franklin that said that?
Or Stephen Roberts.
Or maybe Stephen Roberts. It was on that day. Yeah. Whatever. These days, we're at the midpoint of preseason camp. My brain's fried. Do we have any questions?
Questions?
Let us not, think.
That'd be great. Will Auburn beat LSU this year?
I predict yes. I did. And I did again today on the Fancy Feinbaum show, Mike.
That's right. You want to talk about that? So Brandon was on Feinbaum. He said he was wearing his suit at home, but you couldn't see it because he was calling in. So everybody was wondering where that nice new suit that he got at SEC Media Days was. He was wearing it, eating out of some Jif and on the Feinbaum show, right?
I was not eating a graphic interface. What's the F stand for? Graphic interface format?
I don't know.
Dang it. Anyway.
LSU.
I got them beating LSU for the first time since '99.
I think they'll win that.
I also thought going in 2015 they'd beat them, and then Jeremy Johnson. And, well, not so much Jeremy Johnson, but the defense was just run over by Mr. Leonard Fournette.
Jeremy Johnson didn't help things.
Well, he threw a backward pass, and that doesn't help.
Amazing.
But he also ran for like a 60-yard touchdown when they were down like 58 points, it seemed like.
How about, do you think we'll have a receiver with 1,000 yards or two running backs with 1,000 yards each? Either of those
I'd
possibilities?
be more likely to say one receiver over 1,000 yards, not two 1,000-yard backs. I don't see that happening.
I see that
You
happening
disagree?
a lot easier than they have not had very good success here with receivers, and I think every other SEC they have Auburn's the last team not to have one. So I mean, every other SEC team has had 1,000-yard receiver since Auburn's last. Stat-wise,
mighty juggernaut Arkansas.
Yeah, and I think they'll spread the ball around this year since they don't have a go-to guy going into the season. I think it's going to be trying to find that guy or two, and you might have a guy kind of step up the first two kind of the weeks and then fade a little bit. So I would say with Camp Petway's a lock. If Kerryon stays healthy, I mean he was 130 yards away, and he missed a handful of games last year. I mean that's pretty close. So
yeah, but I'll say this: Kerryon Johnson was the starter until like the Mississippi State game when he got injured.
Yeah, he didn't run the ball very much against Clemson, though.
They didn't run the ball much at all against Clemson because they had the most horrific game plan in Auburn history, possibly. 5 different players lined up at quarterback. That was a nightmare.
This is an interesting question. If Auburn goes 7-5 but beats Bama, do you think Gus will keep his job?
That's quite.
He'd have to get to.
It's a loaded question.
He would be 6-5 going into Bama, so he'd have to have his job for that game, and that might be a debate, right? If they lose to Georgia,
and they're okay. Hold on. What if Auburn wins that game and it's 7-5, but like Alabama's like a surprising like 3-9? I think Malzahn gets fired.
So would Gus have a job 6-5 after losing to Georgia at home?
Yes. I don't think. Jay Jacobs is not, I don't think, going to fire a coach in any sport in the middle of a season. So I think
Alabama then save his job if they were good.
There's it depends on who's pushing buttons behind the scenes. Not necessarily the administration, but big money people and who they feel like maybe they could go get as a coach. That's interesting. Here's the thing. How many 6-5 teams do you know, or teams that finish in that type of record, have beaten Alabama over the last, 8 years, 7 or 8 years? It's not going to happen. What was that thing I saw the other day? There's like 3 coaches coaching right now that have beaten Nick Saban when he's at Alabama. Dabo Swinney, Gus Malzahn, and Urban Meyer. And Urban Meyer has 2 wins. He's the only one with multiple wins.
And Hugh Freeze was the only one before that. Was the only one with 2, and then he's gone.
Yeah, that's why we saw it, because Hugh Freeze is gone. Yeah. He's gone fishing.
That week leading up to the Iron Bowl would be insane if he was 6-5 coming off a loss against the Georgia. I That's the situation they don't want to be in. Who would be quarterbacking if they were 6-5? That'd be Malik. Would he be stepping in the Iron Bowl and win that game?
Very possible. It wouldn't be as bad. It wouldn't be as bad, but it'd be like the 2012 season where they're like, Jonathan Wallace, go out there and do what you can to save us. That's not going to happen though. If Auburn is 6-5 going to the Iron Bowl, we're going to be writing obits. That's by the way, we're not like actual people dying. That's what we call in the news industry for people when they get fired. Like, this is the obit. Little lingo for you, courtesy of 24/7 Sports.
And actually, you've got a couple questions about your T-shirt, Brandon.
Yes.
Where can we get one?
I don't know. I don't tell you.
Big and tall.
Big and tall section. Go to the big and tall section. We're not selling them. In fact, I have two. And one of them doesn't really fit anymore. This one kind of fits, and that's it. He doesn't have any either. He doesn't even
Not
have
yet. They sent you them.
They
so
gave me they gave me a couple.
We're much more excited about your arrival.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If you're a lucky fan, last year, actually before the LSU game here, we attended a tailgate and did like a live stream, and we handed out free T-shirts to people. And so maybe go on eBay. I don't know, but it is a pretty sweet T-shirt. I like these better than our polo shirts.
The blue really brings out your beard.
That doesn't even make sense.
The red. It's the.
So
Did you say
it's
the
a
blue
ginger
brings out
thing.
my? It's a ginger thing. Yeah.
We
You
look
wouldn't
good
under-
in cool
I
tones.
You wouldn't
but
understand.
That's why they agree. It's like a.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Flip flops.
All right. Well,
No
any
more
more questions?
Last
One
call
more.
for questions.
One more.
Let's see. Who do you think will lead the team in sacks?
We did this before. I think we both predicted Jeff Holland.
Yeah.
And I think, just based on what they've said with him rushing the passer, they're really kind of excited.
Yeah.
Marlon could have a big year. I think he'd be a fine choice. But if Jeff Holland's kind of come around the way he said and is going to take the majority snaps at that buck position, he'd be kind of in line. I'll stick with that prediction.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm gonna stick with Jeff Holland too. So I'm trying to sit here and think like the only other person I could think of would be, Marlon Davidson. But I just think because of the nature of the buck position and taking over for Carl Lawson, it's going to be more of a rush.
And if it's not Jeff Holland and he has a good year, if he has a bad year, this doesn't make sense. But if he has a good year and it's somebody else, that's good for Auburn. I mean, that means this defensive line has really kind of been built over the offseason. So if there's a surprise name, I think Auburn fans would be excited about that just because then you're getting some unexpected pass rush. And they kind of need that they need somebody to step up. So, but I think right now Holland's kind of obviously the favorite, front runner.
Yeah. It's been a weird week, and it's only Tuesday. Auburn named a starting quarterback and a punter. John Franklin III left the team, and Pat Dye went on the radio and said this is the deepest team in Auburn history. And they haven't played a game yet.
What's next? I guess we'll have to find out.
Guess we'll just have to find out.
Guess we'll have to find out. We are Auburn Undercover at Auburn 24/7 Sports. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time.